I'm on a mission to introduce my husband to some real literature, and so for today's video, we have the Fourth Wing series. So Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and I don't have book 3 on me because I read the ebook, but we'll pretend it's here in spirit. A lot to go over here. You know it's serious when I have the big microphone and some notes. Had to write them down. There, it's just too much to remember everything. So to start, I'm going to give you some just kind of like general background to this world. Okay. The main character of the story, her name is Violet Sorrengal.
Okay.
She's a 20-year-old woman, and she's very physically frail, which normally I wouldn't point out, but like it's kind of a big point in the story. They bring it up a lot. Okay. And her mother is the general of the army, her kingdom's army.
Okay.
And is stationed at this war college called Basgayath. Okay. And so Violet's kind of been raised in this college. They have like a little apartment, I think, somewhere off to the side of this college or whatever. And in this college, it's a 3-year college. There are 3 different areas of study, so to say, that you can go into.
Okay.
The first one is infantry.
Okay.
Not really important to the story. I think it's going to come in later books.
Okay.
But not really important right now.
Still later after you've read 3 books and it still hasn't become important?
It just started coming up in book 3.
Okay.
It's like too in the weeds to explain how it comes up, but just generally it's just not. They don't really talk to them until like halfway through book 3.
Okay.
Then there is the scribe quadrant, and those are kind of like, they're the historians of the kingdom. They keep notes of everything. They write it down. They're like little librarians.
Just librarians, not like scientists, not engineers. Like it's straight scribe, librarian.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's kind of the impression I get. They even wear robes. Like, like when you think of like a little scribe, like
sure,
huddling around in like a little robe.
Okay.
And then the third quadrant is the rider's quadrant. This is like the biggest one in the story because this is the one that Violet goes into. And so now...
And what are they writing?
Men. No. They ride dragons. Okay. And so the rider's quadrant is the most dangerous because dragons, and it's also the most cutthroat. And Violet doesn't really want to go into we'll get into that in a second, okay?
Is it like the most glamorous? Like everyone's like clamoring to be a writer?
Everybody, yeah. People like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but people would love to be a writer. I think it's like the dream, but because it's so dangerous, that really deters people from entering the quadrant. And I'll go into a few of those dangers in a little bit here, okay?
Okay.
But for the rider's quadrant, you have dragons, and then you also have like a superpower. They call it a signet in the book. But basically, once you bond your dragon, which is just when a dragon picks you, you develop 1, sometimes 2. That's like a little secret you learn later.
Spoiler.
Yeah, a little spoiler. Powers. And so those powers come in 2 different forms. Either they're like external, like I will make lightning, or I will make ice, or I will like make fire.
So like actual superpowers. Like, okay.
Or they're internal, where it's like I can read your mind. I can see your fears, like there's a wide range of them, but they're kind of going to be broken up into those 2 categories.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so I think that's all the like really important background you need going into. Oh, one last thing. Okay. So I told you her mother was the general of this army, right? There's a big kind of war going on. And it's between the kingdom of Navarre, which is where Violet was raised.
Okay.
And this other kingdom called Promomil.
Okay.
So it starts with a P. Couldn't pronounce it for the life of me. That's a common theme throughout this book. And you'll learn that as I explain things to you. My pronunciation is off, and I'm not really going to try very hard to make it right. This is going to be your first time
pronouncing all these words out loud, and you're just kind of taking a guess. Yeah.
And half the time when I'm reading this book, I just kind of read the first 3 letters. It's like blah, 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 blah. But it's the other kingdom who's just kind of, the general impression is that other kingdom's just like a little salty. They're always kind of attacking Navarre and like being jerks. And they have griffins. So instead of dragons, griffins.
Okay.
But the griffins aren't as powerful.
Do they still have the same level of superpowers?
No, they have what's called lesser magic, which is like moving a pen with your mind.
So way not as cool.
Way not as cool.
Okay.
But that's just kind of this war that at least you know going into the book is occurring. So that's all the background information you need. It feels like a lot. Do you think? You don't think?
Well, you did a good job explaining it at least.
Oh my God, thank you. Okay, so the book starts and you're in Violet's point of view. Most of the book is written from her point of view. You get a few bonus chapters of other ones, but generally speaking, her point of view. And her father was a scribe, and her lifelong dream is to enter the scribe quadrant. But when the day comes, that's like, I think they call it conscription day, but it's just like your big enrollment day. Her mother says, no, you're going to be a writer.
Oh.
And Violet's not excited about this because, like I told you, she's pretty physically frail, and it's a very dangerous quadrant to enter. And dragons, they can sense weakness. And so she's like, no, I'm going to be gobbled on up. And her... Sorry.
Okay.
But her mom, like, forces her into it. And technically, you can't force somebody to enter a quadrant. But, I mean, her mom's the general of the army and, like, the leader of this little war college. Like, she can do whatever she wants. And so Violet has to enter the Rider's Quadrant, which I told you is dangerous. I'm going to explain why to you now.
Okay.
There's a couple different things that make this dangerous. One is, like, the actual... So this is a 3-year college, and so you have different challenges, sort of, that you have to go through. The first one is called the parapet. And this is how you enter the quadrant. It's basically a really... what do you call it? Like a tight walk? What do you call those?
Sure. Yeah, tight walk.
But it's just a very narrow kind of stone walkway, no railings or anything, and you have to walk all the way across it. And if you fall to your death. And so that kind of keeps a lot of people away. I told you that's why a lot of people don't.
This is day one? This is
day one. This is how you enter. Even like their quadrant is like offset from the main part of the college. So to physically even enter their little part of the college, you have to walk across this thing.
Some people have the SATs and some people have the parapet.
Yes. And so that's...
Makes you appreciate taking the SATs, huh? No.
I don't know. I might risk it for I've got good balance. So
better than taking the SATs in that sense. Yeah, okay.
Also, I get a cool dragon and Xaden Ryerson out of it. Anyways, so you have to cross the parapet. That's number one dangerous thing about the Rider's Quadrant. Number two is something called the gauntlet, which is just like a really intense obstacle course. Have you ever watched the movie or the show Wipeout?
Oh, yeah.
It's like that, but if you fall to your death.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the second dangerous thing about this quadrant. And these are like big tasks that like the students spend months training for. Maybe not the parapet, but the gauntlet.
Gauntlet's like you're like training for it. Okay.
Then you have something called threshing, which is where the dragons pick you. So your first couple of months in the Rider's Quadrant, you don't have a dragon. You like have to accomplish these challenges before the dragons will even consider you as a rider.
To like kind of become worthy.
Okay. And so Violet has to go through these things, and she is like struggling because she's so physically frail. She's like very weak.
Yeah. Do we have any reasons behind this? Do we know what's going on, or this is just how she is? Like,
they don't really give any
like a medical situation or like part of the lore or anything.
No, it's just how she is. It's just how she's born.
Okay.
I imagine in today's world she would have a diagnosis, but that's not really this.
She's under the medical. They're not quite medically advanced enough.
Yeah, they don't have that. Anyways, so then you have threshing, which is basically where they stick all of the first year students just out into the woods, and they say, "Go find a dragon."
Okay. Maybe you're about to get into this. I'm jumping the gun a little bit. But like, how sentient are the dragons? What do we know about the dragons so far, or are you about to get into that?
The dragons, I wasn't about to get into that, so it's a good question. The dragons are pretty sentient. They can't speak to the humans unless they have a bond. But, like, I mean, they're talking full sentences. Like, they've got a sense of humor. Like,
they talk in full sentences to the people who do have a bond? Like, if you've bonded with them?
They'll choose you, and then you can speak to them telepathically.
Okay. But they're smart. They're not like, it's not like a horse situation.
Yeah, they're really smart. I imagine if these dragons had opposable thumbs, they would have no use for the humans.
Oh, okay.
But there is something...
So we're just a few thumbs away from a big firestorm situation. Okay.
Yeah, and I think the riders help the dragons, like, with their magic. There's a whole weird component to it. I'm not going to go into it. It's too in the weeds. Cool. But, yes. So, basically, getting back to threshing, they put all of the humans, they send them all into a big field and say, find your dragon. And you have to hope that a dragon likes you. Otherwise, they're going to burn you to death. And they give you some hints, like if you're approaching a red dragon, don't look them in the eyes. If you're approaching this type of dragon, do this.
Okay.
And so that's kind of what those first few months are spent doing, right? Physical challenges and then some, like, education on dragons. So Violet enters threshing. Oh, and one last thing. The fourth dangerous thing about the Riders Quadrant is just the other riders, because they're going to try to kill you. If they think you're weak and you're going to be, like, a weak addition to their, like, war, to their army, they'll kill you.
Almost like a Lord of the Flies situation. Strongest survive.
Yeah.
And
there are a few rules, like you can't kill somebody while they're sleeping. You can't kill somebody in your own little squad, stuff like that.
But it's part of the college, or at least maybe the unwritten rules or whatever, that if someone isn't up to snuff,
you're going to get got. Yeah. Okay. And so Violet has a lot of people coming after her because she's so weak. Oh. Okay. They, like, sense that, and they're like, nah, girl, you got to go.
It's not her mom's the general things that are going after her. It's actually
there is a little bit of that, which I'll get into in a second.
Okay.
But anyway, so she bonds this dragon, 2 dragons. One is, like, a huge black dragon, badass dude. His name is Tarn.
Okay.
And we like him. He's really fun. The second one is a little baby dragon. Oh. Who's a little baby, so she's not supposed to bond a human, but she just went against all of the rules. Okay. She said, I like Violet, I'm keeping her. Her name is Andarna. She's gold. Okay. And she has a feather for a tail. Okay. She bonds these 2 dragons and is pretty badass. Okay? People are starting to respect her a little bit now. Except for one man. Well, a couple of people. But one main man, his name is Xaden Ryerson. Now, they meet at Parapet, her first day in the college. And he is the son of a rebellion leader. And Violet's mother killed his father, made him watch.
Whoa.
Made him watch her kill his father, and then kill all of the parents of the children of this rebellion.
Whoa.
And then said, if you want to survive, you have to become a rider. So there's no option for these. I think it's like 110 kids. Yeah.
Why did she want them to become riders?
There was an explanation for that. I don't remember it, but it's
trivial, not important. The important thing is it got him here to this war college where they presumably hate everyone, or
they hate everybody. They hate and you can tell who's a child of a rebellion leader because they all have these, like, black tattoos kind of going up their arm and, like, kind of like onto their neck, or at least Zaden does. But most of them, they have this tattoo, and they're called the marked ones.
Got it. So we've got a rebellious, sleeve-tatted male love interest that's been introduced here. Yeah. Okay.
That's right. That's right. And he's very moody, and his power is like shadows. He can, like, wield shadows.
Whoa.
Yeah. Sexy.
Oh. Let's add a little foreshadowing there.
Anyways, so Zaden hates Violet. He hasn't tried to kill her yet, but they just don't get along. Also, he's a third year. I told you this is a 3-year college. Okay. So they don't have too much interaction other than him, like, being snarky to her. So she gets her dragon, and now, her education shifts from learning how to mount your dragon, learning how to not fall off your dragon while he's flying, learn how to,
Feels like this is the meat of the college. So you do this early thing of, like, almost pre-testing, are you worth it? And weed out everyone that's not going to bond with the dragon. Now you do your dragon bonding. And now they're really going to train them to be these intense warriors.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And while she's doing all of this, she has this very complicated relationship with Zaden, where he clearly doesn't like her, but he's also kind of helping her a little bit. Like, he's helping train her. He's giving her daggers. Like, we kind of think he has a little crush. And she definitely has a crush, because you're living in her mind and you can see that she thinks he's good looking. So she's into him.
Okay.
But he has secrets. He has a lot of secrets, and we don't know what they are, but we know there are secrets. And this is pretty much the chunk of book 1, is her just getting her dragon, learning the ways of dragonness.
Is there any...
Go ahead.
Is there any conflict? You mentioned earlier there's this kind of these on and off wars between the two kingdoms. Are we hinting that this is where the story's going to go, or is it mainly just going to evolve around their college age and their romance?
No, the expectation is that they're going to graduate from this college and join this big war.
So there is like a big ongoing war. Okay.
Yeah. And so, like, a lot of people leave the college and immediately go, like, into the front lines. Like, you're immediately stationed somewhere. Okay. And they have, like, a war class where they go and they hear about current updates in the war, and they get strategy and stuff like that. And so as we start to transition into book 2, so all of these books are continuous. There's no breaks or anything. We start to learn a little bit more of Xaden's secrets. And the biggest one is that the war between Navarre and Promomil is not all Violet thinks it is, or at least the entire kingdom of Navarre has been lied to. So they think the war is just between them and Promomil, you know, the kind of griffins. But there is a third party called the Venin, also known as the Dark Wielders.
Okay.
So there are 3 ways to get magic, get your signet, your power. One is through a dragon.
Okay.
One is through a griffin, which gives you that lesser magic. And the third way, the untold way, is through the ground.
Whoa.
And so,
It's like
but that's
unknown?
like, it's unknown, and it is not recommended. Like, you become like drunk off the power. Like, it like turns you evil.
Okay.
And so it's like a huge secret. They don't tell people.
Okay.
But the Dark Wielders, the Venin, are people who have taken power from the ground, and it like permanently corrupts you. And so the Venin are actually trying to kill Promomil. And the reason Promomil is attacking Navarre is because they want weapons and they want to enter. Navarre has like a protective ring around it. So they want to like enter the ring. Like, they just want to be safe. Promomil's just trying not to die. They're kind of this weird middleman. But all of the citizens inside Navarre don't know about the Venin.
Whoa.
So they think Promomil's just being an asshole.
Yeah.
But they're just trying to survive, you know? And so that is the reason that Xaden's father and all of the other children of the rebellion, all of those parents, that's what the rebellion was about. All of those parents said, hey, like, we should help them. We should fight the Venin with them. We should let them into our kingdom. And that's what they were fighting for.
And Violet's mom, is she the leader of the country, or just
She's
the general?
She's the general. There's a king.
Okay.
And there's, I think, one guy above her.
Okay. But why didn't they want to go help these people? What was...
Because they think they're safe within their wards. And so basically they said, no, like, we don't care about you. You can all die.
Got it. We're
safe. We're going to continue to be safe. And they don't want to take people in because they think it's just a strain on resources. They don't like immigration, essentially.
Okay.
And so Violet learns this, and she says, I need to do something to help. And that's pretty much the chunk of book 2, is just she's picking these little secrets out of Zaden, and now she's like, she wants to help do supply runs, and you know, she's just learning more about the Venin. You're just expanding on this world outside of her war college.
Is each book like a year of her in war college? So book 1's year 1, book 2's year 2.
Yeah, there's like a little bit of extension of like book 1 or year 1 goes a little bit into book 2. I think book 2 goes a little bit into year 3.
Okay.
But generally, yeah.
But she's still in...
Well, no, because book 3 is all year 2. It's like book 1.5 is year 1, and then 1.5 to the end of 2 is year 2.
So she's still in school this whole time. She's even though the war's going on, does Xaden join the war at some point?
Yeah, so Zaden eventually graduates.
Yeah.
And has to... He's like sent on the front lines because everybody wants to kill him, or at least everybody in the military that knows about the rebellion, knows the real reason behind the rebellion, all of this. They want the marked ones to die because they didn't actually think they would make it through. They didn't think the dragons would choose them. They thought they would enter this war college, enter, the Riders Quadrant, and all die.
Ball don't lie type of situation.
Yeah, I don't know that expression, but sure. But Zaden survived, and he's like mad strong because he's got like a badass dragon, and B, he's got shadows, which are super dangerous.
And what else are they?
Sexy. Yeah, and so that's pretty much the chunk of book 2. The big thing about book 3 is that's when things go public. So book 1 and book 2 is really Violet's experience learning all of this, especially book 2, right? She's learning everything privately. She's developing a relationship with the other marked ones. Like, this is all information only she's getting. But book 3 is when they say, no, everybody needs to know about this.
Okay. Who's they say this? Who distributes?
Her, Zaden, the marked ones. There's like some events that lead to it getting widespread, but generally that's the premise of book 3 is it just gets widespread.
Okay.
And like the book shifts from really being about the war college and education to more like battle strategy. They're on the front lines a lot. There's a lot of new characters introduced, like generals and leaders and stuff like that. And people decide they want to kill Violet. And one man tortures her, like in the war college. And Zaden loses his mind because at this point he is like in love with her. And so he's the one who actually spreads the news. He like goes out with all the other marked ones, or at least like a select few, collects venom, and starts dropping their dead bodies around Navarre. Okay. He's like, they're going to know.
Yeah.
And that's how he tells them. And then he saves Violet. And then they run to his old province because his father was like the leader of a province.
So he's still got some friends back there.
Well, he like owns the manor. And this whole time, you find out there's been like another secret little rebellion brewing led by Zaden, but he's never really visited it because he's been in the war college and he's being watched.
He's more of the face of it, the inspirational story behind it, rather
and the
than
power with his shadows. I didn't mean to say it like that, but it's true. And so now the war really breaks out between them, or, this main core group of characters and the Venom. And they rope in Promomeal. They like accept the Griffin Riders in. There's one woman named Kat who used to hook up with Zaden. She was his betrothed. This isn't hugely important, but it makes me very upset, so I want to talk about it. And she is really mean to Violet. She's like, I had him for... Sabrina Carpenter, that song that's like, tasting him, you taste me too.
Oh, yeah.
Those type of vibes.
Oh, those are
And she
not
also,
good vibes.
her little lesser mind is she can raise somebody's... Like, she heightens somebody's emotions. So Violet gets a little jealous, and then Kat is like, no, ramp it up to 10.
She's essentially the emotional manipulator superhero.
I wouldn't call her a superhero.
Supervillain.
She's not a villain.
She's just someone we're kind of mad about because we're rooting for Violet and Zaden.
Yes.
Your face does not say that we're neutral on her.
I am not neutral in terms of her personality, but like, she's not a bad character. Like, she is fighting for the good side. Yeah. Anyway, so a lot of book 3, to be honest, is just a lot of back and forth between Violet, Zaden, and their secrets, like a lot of relationship arguments, a lot of battles of they go here because they have to get this one little item to give to another king to help their strategy. It's just it's a lot of intricate details, too much to get into, but that's pretty much the premise of the book, is just a lot of political stuff, because Violet now at 21 years old is pretty much just like a political leader.
Oh.
Which is wild. Xaden too.
Yeah.
He actually gets promoted or reinstated as a duke, I think.
Okay. Oh, reinstated pre-rebellion status.
Yeah, because he would have been. He was like the duke's oldest son, like a little dukette. I don't know what you would call it, a mini duke, an heir to a duke heir. He gets reinstated, and they're leading this rebellion, and then this big battle comes where Violet is about to die and her dragons, and like there's a lot going on, and Xaden, he needs more power to save them, and you know what he does? He touches the ground, and he takes power from the ground, and he becomes Venom. And then pretty much the second half of the book is...
Oh, that wasn't even the cliffhanger. That was just middle of the book.
No.
Okay.
So while they're on a quest to destroy the Venom, now the quest also includes finding a cure for them. Because obviously Zaden has to survive. They have to cure him. Right. And so that's, a whole second half of the book. I won't get into the details. But they're trying a bunch of different stuff, trying to learn, going to a bunch of different places, get information, whatever. The book ends. But you become more stronger. Like, you become a stronger Venom the more times you take from the earth. And so Zaden did it really that one time. He has a few mishaps, but he's, like, really trying not to, like, take power from there. Because it'll, like, worsen the issue. And he'll lose himself. Every time he does it, he loses himself.
So he gets kind of power hungry and he can't help himself. He has to keep kind of...
And because he's so strong, like, I mean, if he turned full Venom, it would, like, be over for the war. Because he's so strong with his shadows. You
and those shadows. I think there's something you haven't told me about here. Something you're leaving out.
And then the book ends with another big battle. Zaden again has to save. This time it's not saving Violet, it's saving his dragon Segal. So he like really takes from the earth and absolutely demolishes like everything, all the bad things. But at the last moment, him and Violet have a little mental connection because this is kind of in the weeds, but Tarn, Violet's dragon, and Xaden's dragon are bonded.
Okay.
It's like a little dragon bond, like a little love bond. Oh. Different than a rider dragon bond, it's a love bond. And so that puts like a weird connection between Xaden and Violet. So they can speak mind to mind telepathically as well.
Oh.
So it's not just her and her dragons, it's her and Zaden and her dragons.
Do humans bond in this world? Like, is there the same level? No, it's just a dragon thing.
But at the last moment, she speaks in Zaden's mind and she says, "I love you." And he says, "Wait." But it's too late. I mean, he's losing every piece of himself, but he clasps onto that love and he locks it inside of himself. And then the book ends. So at this point, you can assume, going into book 4, which is yet to be released.
I mean, you're going to have to wait years.
I know. You can assume he's fully Venom, but still loves Violet. So like a little piece of humanity, not all is lost. And then there's a weird thing where it skips 10 hours and they're married. And Violet had her memories taken from her.
Wait, what?
It's like a little half page at the end, he turns fully Venom. And then Violet wakes up from because she was in the middle of a war.
Did you just fall asleep during war? She got knocked out or something?
Knocked out or something.
Okay.
She wakes up. She has a ring on her finger. Her brother is hovering over her. She says, "How long have I been gone for?" He said, 10 hours. You're married. You have a little note in your pocket that says, "Congrats, you and Xaden Ryerson are married." And she says, "I can't remember it." And there's one woman whose power is to take memories who's there. And she said, "What did you do, Imogen?" And Imogen says, "What you asked." So apparently something happened, but we don't know because her memories are gone. So that's like a big cliffhanger.
That's a good cliffhanger. It's going to have all you guys waiting for book 2. Good work by the author there.
So that's Fourth Wing. There's a lot happening.
Yeah, quick. I have at least one question here to kind of wrap up. There's a lot of book 2 and 3, as you described, are them going off and kind of doing some of the nitty gritty of this war, right? They're running little missions and they're doing the political side of things. But these are huge books.
Yeah.
So there's got to be something filling a lot of those pages. It doesn't sound like they were super jam-packed with actual, like, plot changes and places and locations. What's like filling all of that? Is it a lot of Is it a lot of building the characters in the world up, or just like explaining the thoughts? Like, is there a lot of dialogue in here?
There's a good amount of dialogue, but it really is just a lot of little quests. They go on a lot of side quests. So, for example, in their effort to cure Xaden, they have to go to these islands. And so there's like 200 pages where they go to one island, they meet with the people there, you learn the culture, whatever, they get no information. So then they fly to another island. You meet the people. There's all this culture. No information. They fly to another like it's just a lot of side quests. Or they have to go to this abandoned city to get a gem. And while they're there, all of this stuff, it's just.
So I am fearful in saying this because there feels like there's a big cult following of Fourth Wing here. But that doesn't sound the most interesting, that there's just hundreds of pages on side quests that don't turn in anything. Does it keep you pretty, encaptured in these chapters, or do you feel like they kind of drag on a little bit?
I think there are points where it feels like it drags on a little bit. I didn't mind it too much just because I feel like it wasn't like they were completely pointless. Like, you get a little nugget of something. I could do with a few less of them, if I'm honest. But, I mean, it kept me engaged. Because I don't know. It kept me engaged. I didn't feel too upset about it. I do think the third book got a little out of hand, if I'm going to be, fully transparent with you. But there's also so many characters. I will say I did have trouble keeping up. And then there's a lot of characters, a lot of character deaths, but then also little things like each character has their own dragon, and the characters have their first and last name, and sometimes they're referred to by their first name, and sometimes they're referred to by their last name. So it just feels like a lot of details you have to remember, which was a little hard. But I didn't understand about 20% of it, and I felt like I still made it through. It was fine. Do you think you would read this book?
This one, I'm actually torn on. Coming into it, I've kind of seen it around. I've heard of it, right? You've talked about it. I was pretty excited about it, especially at the beginning. You're talking about dragons and they've got all the war going on and the signets. It sounded really cool. I'm a little, I suppose the right word is intimidated. Like, it sounds like a good book, but I'm a little intimidated by 1,500 pages of we're only getting through 2 years of War College. And I don't know that I want to commit to such a big journey, if I'm completely honest about it. So I think I'd start it, and then if you get really into it, you get hooked, then it's great. Then you have 1,500 pages or however many it is to read. If not, maybe you get a couple hundred and kind of give up on it. So I think that's my approach on this one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The first book was, I will say, my absolute favorite.
Oh, really?
Just because I felt like it wasn't so in the weeds. It was a lot more of just like slightly bigger, like a lot more kind of world building. And I don't necessarily love details of war.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to hear how somebody flipped around and smacked them with their tail and then dug a talon in and did a swoop and then a spiral and created,
right. You want to hear about other types of people getting flipped around.
I want to apologize for that.